Hi, I'm going to be talking to you about how to secure investors for your business. I've been reading a book by Richard Branson. It's called Like a Virgin. And the chapter I'm on currently is how selling customers is easy and selling to investors is not. So I'm just going to be talking about some of the stuff I've learned in this chapter. So in terms of getting investors, it's quite difficult getting people to invest. So when you've come up with an idea, a great idea, whatever idea it is, you've carried out your research on your competition and you've surveyed all your friends and you've told all your family about your idea and you've had a brainstorm and they think it's great and you think it's great. You've drawn up a business plan and you're ready to take that leap. Now comes the hard part. Securing investment for the venture. Now, personally, me as a businessman, I've gone to many different people when I started businesses. I've been to banks, I've been refused. I've been to friends and family. Sometimes some people help, sometimes some people don't. So most of the time, I've invested myself, my own money. However, when it comes to large ventures, you're probably going to need investors. So securing investment for the venture is going to cross many entrepreneurs' lives. So you're going to be faced with that challenge. That particular hurdle will come across if you want to get quite big and if you want to expand your business. Now, when it comes to getting investors, you need to try to spread the idea to prospective investors. And you're probably going to come across people with far more experience than you or idiots in suits who simply just don't get it. Now, how to get it right? Well, in this chapter, Richard Branson says that there's no one-size-fits-all formula. So when preparing for your potential investors, he gives a few tips. And he just talks about his first actual pitch to particular investors when he had his student magazine. Now, in that magazine, he tried to obtain, when he had that magazine, he tried to obtain funding for that magazine to try to expand it. So his first project on trying to get investors wasn't very good. He was talking at the investors and not with them. So he was telling them how he was going to take the world by storm. He was very excited and he was going way beyond publishing to travel, hotels and music. And he particularly thinks he scared them off because he did not secure the funding. Now, 20 years later, it's a different story because he talks about another project. And that was when he tried to launch Virgin Atlantic Airways. In this particular presentation, he says he was much more attuned to his audience. He pitched his idea to fellow directors and Boeing executives. And though his group had no experience in the airline business, he managed to secure a 747. So he learned what he calls the KISS strategy. Now the KISS strategy stands for keep it simple, stupid. Now I really like that because it's brief, concise and to the point. And that's exactly what he says in his strategy. When you are trying to get investors to invest, keep it clear, concise, and just make sure you plan it out. Keep it simple so that investors can easily understand and repeat back to their own people. In the first meeting, he says that you should avoid overcomplicated numbers. Sell them on the viability of the concepts, and then fill in the nitty-gritty later at the second meeting. Richard Branson described to investors how he would steal market share from the established airlines in his second project, with flights tailored to the needs of business class passengers, as well as offering affordable service that would attract holidaymakers. Now, selling to customers is easy. Selling to investors is not. His focus on the second project was improving service, bringing fun and glamour back to the airline travel. His record of success in the music industry must have impressed the Boeing executives, as they soon agreed to lease him a 747. Now, at that stage, all of his colleagues got excited. The difference between the two presentations is that in the second presentation, he said that he puts himself in the shoes of his audience. Before he met investors, he did some research, and he made sure he knew about the company. So he asked the questions: has the company ever made similar investments? Do they understand the sector, or have they got experience with similar businesses? If not, he tailored the presentation to that person's knowledge of the industry, so it kept them interested. Attention to detail was critical. Long before the day of presentation, Richard Branson suggests that you should make sure you go through every single claim, statistic, and projection in your business plan. Check them all thoroughly, and then check them again and commit them to memory. Know the markets you're going into and target your competition, and remember how to make a plan to make your mark. Be prepared when it comes to investors to defend your argument, because people will question you. What are its weaknesses, and will you be able to overcome them? Before you pitch, do a practice run or 3 with trusted colleagues and advisors, and get each person to play devil's advocate and point out the warts you've not seen or that haven't made it onto the radar. So tell them that they are there to try to find the weaknesses, to ask you the questions before the investors ask you. So it's like a dummy run. Tell them this is a no hold bar time, and that they aren't there to be nice. You want to hear the truth. Tell them to give you constructive criticism. You don't want to hear. Tell them not to just tell you what you want to hear. Now, when it comes to the actual presentation of giving, were the listeners persuaded? So this is a question you got to ask yourself. What did they find memorable about the presentation? Could they repeat your message back to you? Take note and act upon it. The audience won't be so nice. If planning a short meeting, pick 3 points that will stick with potential investors. They should be things like: what makes your product service different? What will improve your customers' lives? And why would people buy it? Write these points down on a postcard, size paper, or even off the cuff of your sleeve. But make sure you keep that message focused. With a bit of luck, your potential backer will be intrigued enough to call you back for a second meeting. And when you have a second meeting, you know it's going pretty well. That's when you come in and give all the nitty-gritty detail and answer any questions that they may have. Now, dress to make a first impression as well. It's important that you dress smartly. It doesn't necessarily have to be suit and tie. Build rapport. Being on time and comfortably dressed is one of the most important points in when arriving to a meeting. When giving the presentation, how you listen is just as important to what you say. So understand the question that's being asked and try to answer it to the best of your ability. Trying at the same time to be persuasive. Now, also look and pay attention to your audience's reactions and take the time to ask them if they have any questions. If it appears you are not getting through, try to adapt your pitch to focus on the areas that interest them. Don't make the mistake of speaking almost exclusively to the audience member who's nodding, or who's nodding the most. He could be the one that's falling asleep. If rejected, ask for feedback. That's very important. Did investors really understand your idea? Do they have suggestions on improving your products or service? So just get some feedback from them, because you may be able to improve your idea, improve that product or improve that service, and they may invest at a later date. While comments may be negative, keep them in mind, because they're not indicative of your chances of success. Just take people's comments on mind, bear them in mind, and if you have to, take action upon them. Find investors to provide the capital you need to investors to provide the capital you need for a launch can be a long and daunting process. So keep tweaking that pitch and move on until you get the investment. Keep on moving to the next meeting. But most of all, don't forget, overcoming adversity is the true mark of an entrepreneur. Now, everything that I read in that chapter, I've learned a lot of new information in that. And for me, as a budding entrepreneur, I've started 3 businesses already. I found that very useful because I haven't got to the stage where I've had to go to investors. Now, by me reading that particular chapter, I've learned quite a lot from Richard Branson himself, and maybe one day I might have to go to investors to ask them to invest in my business to expand. But thank God, to date, I haven't asked many people to invest. But the more I expand, I guess maybe one day I might need to. So it's all good. I hope you liked that information, and I hope you can share that with your friends and family. And I'll be adding another piece soon, and hopefully you guys can give me feedback on as to how I'm doing in terms of public speaking, because this little video clip is part of my journey towards public speaking as well. Okay, so thank you very much for your time.